What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today we're going to take a look at the Senate map based on the newest polling in every battleground state. So we're going to focus on mainly the 9 states that I've talked about a lot, and then we'll take a look at the Senate map and we'll run some different scenarios on how Democrats can take back control of the Senate, as well as how Republicans can maintain control of the Senate. So we're going to do all that in this video, but first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a lot of information to share with you guys today, and these are the 9 battleground states. We're going to look at the polling in all 9 of these states. Now, some of this is going to be pretty interesting, and we're going to keep doing this. I'll do it at least once a week. Now that we're getting polls coming in, before we weren't getting a lot of polls coming in, but now we can start looking at some of the states and say, okay, this is where it looks like, this is who we think has the advantage according to the polls. So let's go ahead and take a look at Alaska. This is one state that Democrats need to win to take back control of the Senate. It will be their easiest pathway to take back control if they can win. Now, there's good news. Peltola is leading in the polls. So in the latest poll, she's leading in every poll. But I want to talk a little bit about this because they have a different type of voting. They have ranked choice voting, which could mean that Sullivan has a really good shot of still winning, even though Peltola's numbers are higher. And I'll show you that in a second. So we look at the first poll here. This is the Alaska Survey Research. This was posted on 6/12/26. 1,393 likely voters. Margin of error there is plus or minus 3%. You had Peltola at 49%, Darden at 3%, Hickey's at 4%, Sullivan at 44%, and then other at 0%. We'll take a look at another poll here. This is Alaska Survey Research again. This was posted on 5/26. This is 1,401 likely voters. Margin of error is plus or minus 3%. You have Peltola at 48%. You have Darden at 5%. You have Hickey's at 3%. You have Sullivan at 44%, and then you have other at 0%. Now, when we're looking at this poll, it's showing us that Peltola is leading in both of those polls, right? But because we have ranked choice voting, it can get really interesting. Okay, first off, we're looking at the margin of error there, plus or minus 3%. That means that Darden can be less than 1%. Okay, that means that Darden can also be 6%. That means that Hickey's could be basically 1%, or Hickey's could be 7%. Okay, so with the plus or minus 3%, that does change things when we're looking at this. Sullivan as well. Sullivan can be up as high as 47% or down as low as 41%. But let's just say that the polling is accurate, and this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the 49%, 3%, 4%, 44%. Now, Sullivan still has a good shot to win, and let me show you how this could happen. Because we know that in ranked choice voting, you're going to have 4 people that will be running. This is a Republican here, Darden. Hickey's is a Republican. Sullivan's a Republican. Peltola is a Democrat. So if we were to see ranked choice voting, and you know how it works, if there's 4 people that are running, what they'll do is take the person that gets the lowest amount of votes, and they will cross that person out, and then they will look at that ballot, and they'll say, well, who was Darden's second choice? Now, if Darden's second choice, the majority of Darden's second choice is Sullivan, then those votes will go to Sullivan. And so Sullivan will move, and let's say all of the votes, all 3%, just to make this clean. All 3% goes to Sullivan, and so now Sullivan is at 47%, okay? So that moves him up a little bit. Now remember, and I might not have said this before, but Peltola, or the person that wins, needs to get 50% plus 1 vote, okay? So Peltola's at 49%, she's very close, but you need to get that 50% plus 1. And so we would have new numbers. We'd have Peltola at 49%, we'd have Hickey's at 4%, and we'd have Sullivan at 47%. And so now they would need to do it again. They would need to go to the next stage. The next stage would be Hickey's. So they would take Hickey's, they would cross him out, and then they would take those votes. Who was the second choice? So Hickey's, people chose Hickey's number 1. Who did they pick for the second choice? Now, if they picked the majority to Sullivan, then that moves Sullivan up from 47% as high as 51%. Okay. Now we're basing this on the fact that they're Republicans and they would vote for a Republican, but it doesn't necessarily mean just because they're Republicans, they're going to vote for a Republican. We could see a situation where you have Republicans saying, I do not like Sullivan. And so even though I'm voting for a Republican as my number 1 choice, my second choice could be a Democrat or could be an independent. So let's say that Hickey's moves over and says, I'm going to vote for Peltola. And all Peltola needs is 1% plus 1 vote. Okay, so it's a lot easier for Peltola if Peltola could win some votes from Darden or Peltola can win some votes from Hickey's. It's a lot easier for her to get to that 50 plus 1. And so let's just say that 1% did go over. So you had 1% go over. Let me clear this up. So you had 1% go over to Peltola. So now Peltola is sitting at 50%. She's very close. All she needs is that plus 1 in order to get her over the top. And so even though we're looking at polling that's showing Peltola at 49%, Peltola at 48%, this race is still very close because you have 2 Republicans that are in that top 4. Now, we don't know that it's going to be a total of 3 Republicans in the top 4. We don't know that. Okay, you could have an independent get in there. You could have another Democrat get in there. We'll just have to see after the primary what happens. But I'm just showing you ranked choice voting. Okay, and that's how ranked choice voting works. Okay, so we have Peltola right now. We could say that Peltola does have the lead, and she would still have an advantage even in a scenario like this because she doesn't have to get as many votes as Sullivan has to get if we were looking at the ranked choice. And, as the second choice, she doesn't have to get as many. Okay, so let's move to Texas here. So moving to Texas, we have an average of the last 4 polls is showing Tallarico at 45.5%. It's showing Paxton at 44.5%. Okay, we can take a look at the top 2 here. So this Texas Pulse poll, this was conducted or at least posted on 6/9/26. You have 807 likely voters, plus or minus margin of error there is 4%. Tallarico at 47%, Paxton at 44%, other at 9%. This falls within the margin of error, so there's no clear leader. We have Qantas Insight. This was posted on 6/5/2026. 800 likely voters. Margin of error there, plus or minus 3.5%. Tallarico at 43%. Paxton at 45%. Other at 12%. Also falls within the margin of error, so there is no clear leader. You have the Texas Pulse Opinion Research posted on 5/29/26. 1,670 likely voters. Margin of error there, plus or minus 2.8%. You have Tallarico at 47%, Paxton at 44%, other at 9%. This also falls within the margin of error, so there's no clear leader. Texas Southern University posted on 5/18/2026, 1,223 likely voters. Margin of error, plus or minus 2.8%. You have Tallarico at 45%, Paxton at 45%, other at 10%. Also falls within the margin of error. There's no clear leader. So the big story here when it comes to the race in Texas, it's too close. We do not know what's going on. There's no clear leader. Okay, now that's still good news for Tallarico. That's still good news for Democrats because Democrats are close. They're fighting. They're neck and neck with a Republican in Texas, according to the polls, which is something that we didn't think we would be seeing right now. And so Democrats should be happy that they're in the race, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I just wanted to mention that when it comes to Texas, there's no clear winner. It's too close to call, and that's why we're saying that it's a battleground state. All right, let's look at Iowa. So Iowa, they just had their primaries. Now, let me be clear. This was posted on 4/21/26. This was before the primary. So now we're waiting, and I'm waiting to see more polling coming out to show us what's going on in Iowa. But right now, this is all we have. So you have Echelon Insight. This was conducted, as I stated, for 21/26. Sample size 377 likely voters. Margin of error there. Look at that. Margin of error 6.6%. So that just when you're looking at a poll like that, you don't know what's going on. Okay, I mean the poll, first off, you don't have that many. The sample size is only 377. It's likely voters, which is good, but you have that margin of error 6.6%. You have Tarek showing here at 46%, Henson at 45%, 9% other. But this could go either way. We don't know. I mean, you could have Tarek could be way ahead, or you can have Henson way ahead, according to this polling, because of that margin of error. So I just wanted to mention that. Once we get more information coming out of Iowa, we can know at least where the wind is blowing. But right now, we don't know because there's not a lot of polling. Okay, let's take a look at New Hampshire. So New Hampshire, this is a state that Democrats need to defend. If they can't defend New Hampshire, it's going to be very hard for Democrats to take back control of the Senate. Okay, so we have an average of polls here. You have Pappas at 47%. You have Sununu at 43%. And these are the likely candidates here. That's why we have them here. So University of New Hampshire, this was conducted on 4/23. You have 1,129 likely voters. Margin of error there, plus or minus 2.9%. You have Pappas at 49%. You have Sununu at 42%. You have other at 9%. Now, this is an example of a solid poll. You have likely voters here. You have a good sample size. You have the margin of error, less than 3%. And so according to the margin of error, the highest Sununu could go is, let's just say 45%. When we're looking at Pappas, the lowest that Pappas can go is 46%. So this would show that Pappas does have a lead, a slight lead, but he does have a lead. So let's look at the Emerson College poll. This was posted on 3/26/2026. We have 1,100 likely voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 2.9%. Another good poll. We have Pappas at 45%. We have Sununu at 44%. We have other at 11%. No clear leader here in this poll. And you see, these are dated back. This is 4/23, 3/26. The reason why is because we're not getting a lot of polling out of New Hampshire. As we get more polling, we'll have a better idea of where it's going, but that is what they're showing us right now. And so now let's take a look at Maine. So we have the average of the polls. These are the last 5 polls. You have Plattner at 48.8%. You have Collins at 44%. We have Qantas Insight as the first poll. This was posted on 6/12/2026. 870 likely voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 3.4%. Plattner at 46, Collins at 45, other at 9%. Now, I will tell you, Plattner's polling, this race has been tightening. Ever since that last scandal with the text messages, this race has been tightening. So we'll have to see what happens in the future, but this is what we're looking at right now. Tavern Research, this was posted on 6/8/2026. 1,642 registered voters, margin of error plus or minus 2.8%. Plattner at 51%, Collins at 49%, other at 0%. As I stated, the race is tightening. So we're looking at these last 2 polls. Now they're both within that margin of error. Okay, that's very important. So there's no clear leader in both of these polls, but we are seeing closer polls. We're seeing them tighten. Let's take a look at UMass. This was posted on 6/4/2026. 650 likely voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 4.9%. You have Plattner at 48%. You have Collins at 43%. You have 9% as other. This falls within that margin of error, so there is no clear leader. Looking at the University of New Hampshire poll, this was posted on 5/27/2026. This is before the scandal. 1,280 likely voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 2.7%. You have Plattner at 51% and Collins at 42%, other at 7%. Now, this is what I'm talking about. You have a solid poll here, solid sample size, likely voters, 2.7% margin of error, less than that 3%. That's good. And you have Plattner at that 51%, Collins at 42%. A 9-point advantage. This is outside of the margin of error. This was before that scandal broke. Okay, so it's very important to note. So we have that before the scandal, and then we have these polls that are after the scandal, and you see how the race has really tightened. So let's go and take a look at the last poll here. Pan Atlantic Research posted on 5/20/2026, 827 likely voters. Margin of error there, plus or minus 3.7%. You have Plattner at 48%. You have Collins at 41%. You have other at 11%. This is another poll where we're seeing a 7-point margin there. This does fall within the margin of error, however, and so there is no clear leader. But you do see that spread. There's a bigger spread here. Okay, now let's move to Michigan. Michigan's another state where we're still waiting. We don't have a lot coming out of Michigan as far as polling when it comes to the Democrat against the Republican, but we do have some polling in the primary, okay? So right now, if we're looking, first off, let's look at the Democrats. So you have 2 poll average here. El Sayed is at 29.5%. Stevens is at 26.5%. McMorrow is at 15%. Okay, so the TIPP poll, this was posted on 6/1/2026. 619 likely voters. They do not give us a margin of error there. That's very important. We need to focus on that. So we have El Sayed at 31%, Stevens at 35%, McMorrow at 13%, other at 21%. So Stevens is winning in this poll here, TIPP poll, but we don't have a margin of error, so we don't really know where that's going. The sample size is not very big at 619, and so this is still very, very close. Looking at the Mitchell Research, this was posted on 5/11. We have 405 likely voters, another small sample size there. We do not have a margin of error. We have El Sayed at 28%, Stevens at 18%, McMorrow at 17%, other at 37%. So these polls right here, they don't give us much information, so we don't really know where this is going when it comes to Michigan. And so that's unfortunate that we have a poll, we don't have that much information, so we're just gonna have to wait when it comes to Michigan. Republicans, right now, Rogers is the favorite. The other is 44%. I don't even need to go over this. You guys can see here that Rogers versus Smith is pretty much going to be Rogers, okay? All right, let's move to Ohio. This is another race that Democrats need to win. They need to win in Ohio. Okay, so looking at Ohio, we don't have an average here, but we will go over each individual poll. So we have this Fox News poll. This was posted on 6/3/2026. 1,016 registered voters. Margin of error there is plus or minus 3%. You have Brown at 53%. You have Husted at 45%. You have other at 2%. Now, this is a good poll, good sample size. However, it's registered voters, so we don't know if these people participate in elections. Just because you're registered to vote doesn't mean that you vote. The margin of error is good there, plus or minus 3%. And it's showing Brown at 53%. So Brown has an 8-point lead in the latest polling. Now that is good because Brown is running up against an incumbent. And so if you're running up against an incumbent and you have an 8-point lead in a poll, that says a lot. Okay, let's look at a few more here. Echelon Insights, this was posted on 4/21/2026. You see here, there's almost a 2-month gap here. So we're not getting a lot of polling coming out of Ohio. So we have 413 likely voters, so the sample size is very small. Likely voters, that's good. Margin of error there, plus or minus 5.8%. That margin of error is a large margin of error, so you don't get very much information. You have Brown at 45%, Husted at 51%. You have other at 4%, but this falls within that margin of error. Okay, it falls within the margin of error, so there's no clear leader. The poll right above that, there's a clear leader. Brown is the clear leader. Okay, we'll do one more. Bowling Green University, this was posted on 4/20. We have 1,000 registered voters. We have the margin of error there at plus or minus 3.9%. You have Brown at 47%. You have Husted at 50%. You have other at 3%. There's no clear leader here as well. It all falls within the margin of error. Okay, North Carolina. This is another state. This is probably, as far as Democrats are concerned, this is probably going to be their best chance to pick up or at least flip a Republican seat, okay? So looking at the latest polls here, we have the average of the last 3 polls. You have Cooper at 49.7%. You have Whatley at 40.7%. And we have the Change Research poll. This was posted on 5/18. You have 957 likely voters. Margin of error there, plus or minus 3.3%. You have Cooper at 49%. You have Whatley at 42%. You have other at 9%. And so this poll, this is outside of the margin of error, so Cooper does have a slight lead. So looking at Harper polling, this was posted on 5/14. We have 600 likely voters. Margin of error there, plus or minus 4%. You have Cooper at 50%. You have Whatley at 39%. You have other at 11%. So this is outside the margin of error, so you do have a clear leader in Cooper. Opinion Diagnostics, posted on 4/29/2026. 830 registered voters. You have margin of error there, plus or minus 3.5%. You have Cooper at 50%. You have Whatley at 41%. You have other at 9%. This is also outside of the margin of error and is showing Cooper as the leader. So now let's move to Georgia. Looking at Georgia, we have Echelon Insights. This was posted on 4/21/2026. 407 likely voters. Margin of error here, plus or minus 6.5%. So we have a small sample size. We do have likely voters. That's good. But you have that margin of error at 6.5%. So pretty much anything that we see in the polling is going to fall within that margin of error. So we have Ossoff at 51%. You have Collins at 44%. You have other at 5%. This falls within the margin of error, so there's no clear leader. Emerson College poll. This was posted on 3/5/2026. 1,000 likely voters. We have the margin of error there, plus or minus 3%. So all of this is good when it comes to the polling and sample size. We have Ossoff at 48%. You have Collins at 43%. You have other at 9%. So in this scenario, this also falls within that margin of error, which means that there's no clear leader. Okay, Qantas Insight. This was posted on 3/15/2026. 624 likely voters. You have margin of error there, plus or minus 4.3%. You have Ossoff at 38%. You have Collins at 38%. You have other at 24%. And obviously, there's no clear leader. It's a tie. And so those are the newest polls in the battleground states. Now let's take a look. I want to just move over and take a look at the Senate map. We're going to take a look to see what Democrats would need to do to take back control of the Senate and what Republicans would need to do to maintain control of the Senate. So the first thing when it comes to Democrats, what Democrats need to do is they need to defend 3 states. They need to win in Georgia. They need to win in Michigan. And they need to win in New Hampshire. Now, you saw the polling in most of these states was very, very close. But this is what Democrats need to do. If they can defend these 3 states, now they need to pick up 4 states in order to take back control of the Senate. That's why it's not going to be easy, because when you're looking at the polling, as I stated, in these 3 states, you don't have a blowout. It's very, very close. I think the best opportunity for Democrats to defend, the best state that they can defend, is Georgia. But when we start looking at Michigan, we don't have a lot of polling coming out of Michigan. We start looking at New Hampshire, we also don't have a lot of polling coming out of New Hampshire. So we don't really know where it's going. Pappas, I think, is doing a pretty good job in New Hampshire. But when we're looking at Michigan, it's up in the air. We don't know how that's going to play out. And so Democrats need to defend these 3 states. Then Democrats need to net the 4 states. So now they need to flip 4 Republican states. So Democrats' best opportunity, and you guys saw it in the polling, their best opportunity is going to come in North Carolina. So if Democrats can win in North Carolina, they're on their way. Their next best opportunity is now going to be Maine. Even though that race is tightening, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and we know what happened in the past. We know that polls were showing that Plattner was 8 points ahead, 9 points ahead, outside of that margin of error. And so there's a real possibility as time goes on that Plattner will regain that same distance that he had before. And he's going to need it, because usually Collins is underrepresented in polling. She usually outperforms her polls during election day. And so this could be a situation where she outperforms. And so if we're looking at a race that is very close according to the polls, and she outperforms the polls, then she will win. So this is another good pickup for Democrats. I still think it's a good pickup. We just have to wait a little bit longer to see how, see what's going on with the polling, if the polling starts showing a larger gap. But right now, let's say Democrats win in Maine. Now we need to look at that 3rd state. And I think at this point, the next best opportunity for Democrats is going to come in Alaska. You guys saw the polling coming out of Alaska. You saw that Peltola was leading in all the polls. However, they have ranked choice, so it's a little bit different. But just looking at the polling, Peltola is doing really well. So let's say Peltola wins in Alaska. So now Democrats have netted 3 seats. So they need to win 1 more. So now we're looking at Texas, we're looking at Iowa, we're looking at Ohio. I think the best possible pickup at this point, and you guys saw that in the polling as well, Ohio. Sherrod Brown, the latest poll showing Sherrod Brown is up, by 8 or 9 points. Okay, so Sherrod Brown is doing really good in Ohio right now based on the latest polling. And so now we would be down to 2 more states. Now these 2 states, Democrats can win both of them. However, in Iowa, we don't have a lot of information. Hopefully in the future, we'll get more polling coming out, so we'll have a better idea of where that's going. In Texas, we do have polling coming out, but it's showing no clear leader. It's pretty much neck and neck, which is a benefit for Democrats, because now Democrats have a chance to win in Texas, whereas 6 months ago, they didn't have a chance to win in Texas. But let's just say, for sake of this scenario, Republicans win in Iowa and they win in Texas. So if we're looking at final numbers here, you have Democrats and independents at 51, you have Republicans at 49. Democrats would take back control of the Senate. So now when it comes to Republicans, what do they need to do to maintain control of the Senate? All they need to do is to pick up one of these blue states that are on this map. And it's very possible, because when we're looking at this map, we know, as I stated, Michigan, we don't really know how that's going to play out. When it comes to Georgia, we don't know how that's going to play out. New Hampshire, we don't know how that's going to play out. Will Republicans be able to defend one of the states that Democrats have a possibility of flipping? North Carolina, Maine, Alaska. Republicans have a good opportunity to win in one of those states, and all they need to do is win in one of those states. If let's say Collins pulls it out, she wins in Maine. Now you have Democrats and independents at 50. You have Republicans at 50. We have a tie. Tie goes to the vice president. Vice president's a Republican. Guess what? We're looking at a situation where Republicans maintain control of the Senate. And so I just wanted to show you that this is going to be a very tight race in the Senate, because realistically, we're looking at 1 or 2 states that it's going to determine who takes back control of the Senate. When it comes to the House, it's a lot different. Democrats are likely to take back control of the House. But when it comes to the Senate, that's what everybody's going to be watching. And so now I want to hand it off to you. What do you think we're going to see in the midterm election? Let me know when it comes to the Senate, when it comes to the House. Who do you think is going to take control? You think Democrats will take control of the Senate and the House? You think Democrats will only be able to take control of the House and not the Senate? Do you think Republicans will maintain control of both the House and the Senate? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.